All right. Here we go. All right. What's up, everyone? Give me a minute here. I know people are going to be jumping in. So I want to make sure everybody gets in here. As you can see, this is the official statement from District Attorney Larry Krasner. Well, his office. Larry Krasner. All right. And we are live on everything. Okay. So I'm going to bring somebody in here who's going to join me in this. Brian has worked with me on a few other stories before. Brian is a public relations person, has his own company. He's going to join us for this, and I'm going to explain to him, because he's as curious as everybody else, and to all of you, what happened in court, all the facts from the court, and my opinion on why we're here. What's
Mark,
up, Brian?
Thanks so much for having me on. Mark, I know you've had a hell of a day. I mean, you've had a hell of a past few days.
Nothing compared to what this young man's going through. I just had to watch it. He has to live it.
You know, so many Philadelphians, I mean, people who pay attention to not just the crime beat, but I mean, the big stories that go on in this city have been following this story, myself included. You were right there on the front lines today and days before this. Mark, I'll let you take the lead in the beginning, how you want to kick this off. I've got a lot of questions for you because you were there, I was not there, and you have a whole lot more insight than most of us listening do.
Yep. So what? Give it a couple minutes here. So just for background, like right now, what I'm wearing is the shirt of Mark Dial when they did the bike ride down the shore a couple years ago when he was sitting in prison for a first-degree murder charge. Okay. When this all happened, Krasner went after him like he does any cop. The max, the most severe punishment I can get on this, any cop, I'm going to go all in. And that's what he did. Mark sat in jail for almost a year. They had fundraiser after fundraiser. And that's what this shirt is. So in support and, of him, that's why I'm wearing it. Now, everybody, you can see right here that Larry Krasner put out this statement regarding today's verdict. If you remember, on August 14th, 2023, you have seen the videos that the media is showing you. Officer Dial and his partner chase a vehicle. They lose the vehicle. They find the vehicle. They approach the vehicle, and shots are fired. Young man, Eddie Irizarry, loses his life. And if you remember that day, there was a press conference. There was interviews on the street. And from the beginning, from that moment on August 14th, while Mark Dial took Eddie to the hospital to save his life, false information was being put out. A picture was being painted of this young man, and it never really changed until today. So for those that don't remember, on August 14th, at the time, the police commissioner was Danielle Outlaw, the absolute worst police commissioner the city has ever seen and will probably ever see. Her team announced that Eddie came out of his vehicle with a knife and lunged at the officer. Officer discharged. And at the time, nobody knows any different. That sounds like a good shoot. And Fox even interviewed this young man's a family member that night, and she admitted, like, yeah, he has mental issues and carries knives. So they weren't surprised about the outcome. Then we actually, a few of us that always follow everything Philadelphia, started getting information that he didn't get out of the car with a knife. Now, I know Mark. Mark is friends with my son. Mark has been at my home many times. When I say he is a good person, a great young man, that's exactly what he is. He is a great young man, not what we would call super trooper. There's cops probably to this day that are on the street that would love to get in a shooting, that would love to shoot somebody. I worked with a couple of guys like that. That's not who Mark was. That's not who he is. There are cops that what they see on TV is what they want to live in real life on the job. That's not who Mark is. Mark's a young man who wanted to follow in the footsteps of his dad and his grandfather. And he did. Became a Philadelphia police officer in one of the worst districts in the country, in the 24th district. Although this happened right outside in 25th. So I know him personally. Mm-hmm. I have an emotional investment in this because, again, there's some cops where if this would have happened, I would be like, look, dude, it was bound to happen to you eventually. Figured. Him, no, not a chance. It is what the lawyers said, Fred Perry and Brian McGonigal. This was a tragedy. That's all it was. So where are we? How did we get here? Mm-hmm. So if you don't remember, after this, Mark's charged with the, because Krasner's got to be Krasner. And there's also somebody else involved in here who I'm going to call out at the end. And I'm going to ask everybody to politely email this person, call his office, so put it on social media. All right. That person's Shaka Johnson, the lawyer for the family of Eddie. And at the end, I'm going to tell you what I think he should do, because he's part of this too. And let's see if he is really, truly a champion of the victims. I'll explain that later on.
Mm-hmm. So, Mark, for folks listening, you gave a great context into what set up this trial, and we'll get to the verdict and everything that played out in the courtroom. What exactly was Mark Dial charged with?
So originally it was charged with just murder. And when they do that, it could be second, or third, which comes with a bail. So people that don't know, if you get murder in the first degree, you get no bail. So the very first time he was charged with just general murder, got a $50,000 bail. Krasner was not happy with that. Okay. He wants all cops in this situation. He wants them in jail the entire time. So they go to court. The very first time he goes to court, the judge throws it out. Okay. Very first hearing, judge throws it out. They refile. They find a different judge. They get to a different judge, and they upgrade the charges to murder one. There's no bail with that. Mark went away and was sent away for 10 months. Had to go into protective custody because he's a police officer. So for 10 months, he's off the street. Even though they charge him with murder one, which is just absolutely insane. Nobody, Larry Krasner himself, did not believe it was murder one. I talked to a district attorney today. Somebody I talked to gives us information from time to time. Said nobody in that office believed for a second it was murder one.
I mean, murder one would mean he would have had to gone out with the intent to.
Right. He was going to kill him. He was looking to kill this person. That's murder. That's what murder one is. It's essentially, I ain't going out to commit murder tonight.
And that got him detained or
got him held in
jailed. We'll call it jailed for 10 months.
And then Eventually, after 10 months, it gets to, however the court proceedings, roll that way. Judge is like, this is not murder one. And they agreed that prosecution withdrew murder one and dropped it down. I thought either murder two or murder three. I forget. And he was out on bail again and has been out on bail ever since. And is still out on bail tonight. They tried to revoke it. Judge wasn't having it. Said no. So he's been, living the best life you possibly can with the stress of, am I going to go to jail? And oh, by the way, I took a life of a person that I didn't want to do. So everybody's seen portions of videos and heard little snippets from, Fox, 6 ABC, Channel 10, Inquirer, wherever, of what happened that day. So I was in court Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, today. And here's how court went. Monday was jury selection. I was there briefly in the morning. Jury selection. They got started late in the afternoon. The final jury was 2 men and I believe 10 women. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's what the final makeup of the jury was. That was who rendered the verdicts today. Wasn't a long trial. Weren't many witnesses. The detectives that did the case, which any police officer here or anybody that's been in court, it's pretty standard. They just come out, interview people, interview witnesses. There's nothing crazy you're going to hear from them. But the first shocking thing that came up, I'm going to show you, was their expert witness. So the prosecution brings up an expert witness. All right, this is going to be hard to see, but this is Section 508, Pennsylvania Crime Code, use of force in law enforcement, peace officer use of force in making an arrest. Okay. So I know it's going to be hard to see. If you can zoom it in, if you're on your phone, snap a picture, and then you can zoom out. So essentially what this says is while a police officer is making an arrest, he or she feels that their life is in danger or the life or bodily harm of themselves, their partner, or the community, and they feel deadly force is necessary, they are allowed to use it. And this law protects them. It doesn't say in there, oh, you got to be 100% accurate. No, you're not even allowed to second guess a cop. So one of the few intelligent things Outlaw said when she was being interviewed back when this all took place was reporters like to ask this question, and people that have no idea about policing love to ask this question. Well, why did you have to shoot him? Why couldn't you have done this? Why couldn't you have done that? Now, mind you, as long as it takes you to ask that question in real life, you're dead. It's over. So as you're thinking about these questions in real life scenario, you're already shot, dead, over. Forget about it. You're gone. So they asked these questions. Why can't he do this? Why didn't he do that instead? And she said, I cannot second guess what he did. It is his decision, which he has the right to make. He felt threatened. That's his decision. I'm not even allowed to second guess it, let alone question it. And that's what this is. That's what this law is. Because police officers, law enforcement officers in the field, on the job, in real time, have almost no time to make a perfect decision. It would be great if they could. If they could, they would be working for the Justice League or the Avengers. But unfortunately, that's not real life. That's what this law is for. It is there to protect a cop, a state trooper, an FBI agent, anybody. That in a moment of deadly force, when they used it, did they believe their life was truly in danger? And if they believed it, and there's no malice and there's no proof otherwise, you're not supposed to be able to charge him, or convict him. What happened this week, every single person in that courtroom, and I guarantee most of the jurors knew or had a feeling that this case probably should have never been here. Even the judge. There were times throughout the hearing when the prosecution would raise something, and even the judge would look at him sideways like, what are you doing? Like, come on. The judge had to explain this law, 508, multiple times to the jury, during his instructions, during questioning, when the jurors had questions. So now back to this. So why is this important other than, the meaning? Well, the star witness for the prosecutor was a use of force expert. Okay. The use of force expert from South Carolina comes up, and just so you know, they get paid for this. They're not just doing it out of kindness at heart. They're paid, and they're paid well. And that's for both sides. Comes up and standard questioning. Where did you go to school? What are your qualifications? Yada, yada, yada. Fred Perry asks him, what can you tell us about Section 508? Don't say it in your report. Guy fumbles through his paperwork. He's like, I don't have it. And they're like, wait a minute. You wrote a report about the use of force in a case in Philadelphia, and you don't know the law behind it? He said, no. Never even read it. Didn't know it. Never even read it. Didn't even make it into his report. He's like, well, my report's just my opinion. So that was their star witness. That was it. So they're already in the hole. Okay.
And Mark, just to set up a timeline with how this trial played out, was that the first witness? I
don't remember which witness was what. I didn't see
because I think everybody listening. I mean, almost none of us were in the courtroom. You were able to be there for.
Yeah, they all kind of blend who went first, second, third. Mm-hmm. It's their testimony is what's important.
Because I'm curious about how the prosecution built up their story. So it sounds like they didn't lead with this expert witness. Well, how did they build up? Do you have? Yeah. Well, do you have a characterization of the chronological order of how they built up this story?
Here's the prosecution story in their opening and closing. Officer Dial and Officer Morris were out at they went to what's called fleet management. They had to switch out their vehicles. They were heading back to their district, sitting at a corner. I forget the corner. They were sitting in an intersection. Morris is driving. Mark, and you can see it on the cameras, is just playing on his phone like any of us would be. Prosecutor tried to make that a big deal, like, oh, he wasn't even paying attention. Man, when you are the passenger and your partner's driving, no, you're not. You're playing on your phone. Okay? That's what you're doing, especially in the afternoon. They say, prosecutor admits, Eddie drives by them on the right side in the bike lane and just blows by the cops, blows a red light, turns, and the cops pursue, which is normal. Okay? That is not a normal situation. You have to look everything by, if you're a law-abiding citizen, would you do what that man did at that time? No, because that's not normal. You don't blow by cops in a bike lane and go through a red light in front of them. You just don't do it. Unless you're running from something, you're on something, or you may be even in danger and need help. So they pursue. Again, initiated by Officer Mars, not Officer Dial. He didn't initiate it. So the prosecuting team, their story is that they chase and they violate all kinds of policies and procedures. They didn't turn the lights and sirens on. His partner did not. They did call in the car to see if it was wanted. Again, was this involved in a shooting, a robbery, or something? Because of the behavior. That's actually good police work. As they are going and chasing him, they lose him. All right. So the prosecutor says, well, they lose him. They don't know where he's at. They turn the corner where he turned, and there's a car at the end of the block that's double parked where nobody can get through. So as they're coming up the street, they see Eddie's car parking. The prosecutor says they get out of the car. And at this time, Eddie's only violation of the law, according to the prosecutor, is some traffic tickets. That's what he would be guilty of. The prosecutor wanted the jury in the courtroom to believe this was not a big deal and that they should have never been going after him anyway. And the fact that they did go after him led to all the violations of the protocol and, all the little stuff that cops probably do a lot just out of habits, not intentionally. And that was their issue. If they were following policy and procedure, if they were doing things the right way, if they didn't make a big deal out of a guy, blowing by them at however fast in the middle of the day on a Sunday afternoon with kids running everywhere on a beautiful summer sunny day, he wants you to think all that stuff, that's nothing. That's minor. That was the prosecutor's game plan to make you think what Eddie was doing was meaningless. And the cops probably shouldn't even have been this hyped up to be involved in this case, chasing him. That was what they were trying to paint the picture of. This never should have happened. That's what they're saying. But it did happen. Okay. That's why we have traffic laws on the books. That's why you pay outrageous car insurance, because you have people that disobey them, smash into other people, kill people, which our city sees all the time, hit and runs, people getting killed by cars because there's no regard for the basic traffic law. So that's what the prosecutor was trying to paint this picture as. These two cops in a situation they created, not Eddie. That's what they were painting.
And that tees up the context perfect, because clearly we also want to hear the defense case, and Sergeant Mark, I understand you were part of the defense case. You were a character witness, if I understand right.
That was a character witness for me.
Now you can lead off with how the defense started this. Obviously, we all want to hear your character witness and how you testified, but if you want to start with that, start with that. If you want to take it back to how the defense built up this case, I think we all want to hear that.
Yeah. So what happens now is they have, I skipped over one of their witnesses. So there's two main witnesses, the prosecutor. So we're going to go in order. The prosecutor brings up their witnesses first. Prosecutor brings up their star witness, who, again, was not from the city, didn't read the law that I just had posted, knew nothing about the law, and admitted that the knife Eddie was holding, when pointed fast like that, resembled a gun. Also admitted that if he was in that same situation, he would use the same force. Their own witness, right off the bat. The big shocker of all this, other than the verdict, was Mark's partner. And I got to say, I was just at his house. This is how good of a kid he is. In law enforcement, when your partners basically rat you out and throw you under the bus, you're not going to be well liked within that department, especially when you lie. And I had said, I can't believe it. If I were him, I would actually transfer out, because you lied to save your own ass and threw your own partner under the bus, a person who had nothing to do with this whole case in the beginning. You're the one that drove after him. You're the one that pulled up next to him. You're the one that said, Mark, he's got a fucking gun. You did it. He didn't. Everything that happened to Mark is because of his partner. But his partner gets on the stand and says, he has a knife. Mark, he has a knife. He has a knife. That's what he says. He said. All right. The prosecutors, the entire trial, that's all they say. No, he never said gun. He said knife, knife. Everybody. He says, Mark, he's got a fucking gun. I mean, go find all the videos you want. I listened to it. It was the last video they showed today. The jury want to hear it again. Mark got a fucking gun. And then he says knife. I can't make the knife out, but you hear effing gun.
And just so we all understand this, because this is huge. I saw the video, a horrible video to have to watch. Mark, yeah, I mean, you in law enforcement, it probably kills you, especially knowing a person involved in that
nobody
situation,
wants to kill
seeing
anybody.
no, exactly,
Not the
yeah,
fucking movies, you know what I mean?
But most of us who are at least partially invested in this case saw that video. So they had a witness on the stand arguing against video and audio that has been widely public now, and prosecutors reinforcing
the whole
that
time
statement.
You know, and when you say something enough,
I mean,
you could change
somebody's.
You could change somebody's perspective of what they're seeing or hearing. You know, they have all these weird little things on TikTok and all that where the dress looks blue, but it's really gold or something. But here's the kicker of it all. He says all that because he's the prosecutor's witness, mind you. And back to what I was saying about what Mark. You know what Mark said? He's an all right guy. I guess he was scared, trying to protect himself. He's like, I get it. That was the kid who has now been found guilty of voluntary manslaughter, still sticking up for his partner that rolled him under the bus and then drove it back over. But now, back to the testimony. They play the video. The defense comes up, plays the video, and says, what are you hearing right now? Because we're hearing gun. What are you hearing? You know what he says? Yeah, I hear that too. Sounds like me saying gun. Like, I mean, you can't make it up. So now it's okay. This is where we're at. Prosecutors first, big star witness, a use of force professional that doesn't know anything about use of force in Pennsylvania. He falls on his face. The partner gets up there, says I said one thing. His body camera footage and everything else shows that he says another, and he admits to it. There you go. That's where we're at right now with their witnesses. It was just, you almost had to, it was so guaranteed of a win that you were almost too scared to even be optimistic because something wrong had to have happened. Because again, we shouldn't be here, but we are. So it can't be this easy already. Prosecution rests. Everybody feels good. Reporters that would talk to me off the record, they're like, oh, he's got this. He's got this. And they didn't even get to our side or the defense side yet. So on comes the defense. Their star witness was a state trooper for 22 years, a New Jersey state trooper. You know what for 14 years, he was a lead investigator for the whole state of New Jersey investigating police shootings. Never had an incident where a police officer was in a shooting and they had to be charged. He said, and he did them all. Never seen it. He went on and basically, like we all know, people in the job, that Mark did everything according to his policies and the law. It didn't end the way anybody would want it to end, but within the law and what he believed, the star witness nails it. So now you're like, here we are. This is great. All the character witnesses, we all come up, and that's pretty standard. It's nothing spectacular with that. They ask you basic questions. We all get asked the same questions. We all give the same responses, basically. Is he a good person? Yes. Good in the community? Yes. Great reputation in a good community, or a good reputation? Yes. But the star of it all was Mark. Mark testified in his own defense. Okay?
He did.
He did.
I didn't realize that. Yeah, go ahead.
So Mark testified. They go over everything, frame by frame, second by second. And Mark throughout the entire hearing was visibly upset. He broke down a few different times, and these aren't crocodile tears. These are genuine tears from a kid who took a person's life that he didn't want to. Okay. You know, after this whole thing happened, or after he gets out of the vehicle, you know, we kind of skipped over this part, like the actual incident. Mark gets out, and you see him, the car. He is at the front, would be front on driver's side of the car, gun drawn. Why? Because his partner has his gun drawn already. And for people that don't understand what that means, is if you and I are partners and we're going out on the street tonight, we have a bond to make sure you get home safe, and I'm going to protect you. You're going to protect me to make sure I get home safe. So it is so sacred and so important that when we are out and in a high tense moment like that, you say to me, Mark, he's got a gun. It is the same as me seeing the gun. You say to me he has a gun. Guess what? He has a gun. And that's the information I'm going off of, because my partner, whose job right now is to make sure I am safe, he is safe, and the community is safe, is relaying information to me that I have to believe is 100% accurate at the time that we know of. Mm-hmm. And that's how Mark is reacting. Mark's reacting off of first seeing his partner with his gun out, brings out his. Here's his partner giving commands. Show me your hands. Show me your hands. Mark does the same. Mark walks around to go to the driver's side to get him out. Okay. Again, all normal. May not be perfect, but no scenario is. That's why you can't practice every scenario, because you can just say, hey, this is how you should do it. But 99 out of 100, it's going to go sideways. But here you are. Here's the tools so you can adjust, reevaluate, figure it out in a second. Because that's again, these are the time frames you have, 1 to 3 seconds if you're lucky. Mark is, again, going there to get the kid out. Now he hears, Mark, he's got a fucking gun. And then they say, it's a knife. Or he says, Mark, it's a fucking gun. He's got a knife. And that's what you hear. So Mark's heard gun. And I'm going to tell you all right now, the second he heard gun, it's over. You don't hear anything else after that, because your mind just went to, oh shit mode. I am now standing from me to my computer screen away from a gun. You know what that feeling's like? Because I do. Because I had a guy sit on my car like this, and I'm sitting in driver's seat like this, and he's sitting right here with one hand in his pocket and the other hand right here. And you know what he told me after we took him into custody? That had I tried to grab his arm to hold him, because he was wanted and I was waiting for my team to get up, he was going to pull out the gun and shoot me. He said he wasn't going to shoot me in the face because he didn't want to kill me, but he was going to shoot me so he can get out. And his hand was on a gun. And if he wanted to do it, I had zero defense. Mark was faced with that same situation. Now, with the information he has from his partner, and now what he sees, which is the kid pull up in a firing motion with a knife. Now we know it's a knife. Again, he doesn't know it's a knife at the time. Nobody does. And points it into his direction with all the information he has, with what he can see. Again, a dark, and the handle, by the way, looks like a revolver. And for those that are saying, oh, guns are 8 inches or 7 inches, guess what? There's guns this big. So throw that shit out the window too. The size is irrelevant. It's what the object looks like. Is it metallic? Is it silver in color? Is it black in color? Yes and yes. Guess what else is? Guns. And guess what else you do with a gun when you hold it? You fucking point it like this. You know, like that. That's how you hold it. That's what he was doing. Mm-hmm. All that information in a second. He had to make a decision. He makes it. Fires 6 shots. Now, that's the other thing here. The prosecutors tried to make this 6 shots like this is some unbelievable amount of bullets. I wish I had my firearm with me, but it would probably get banned on some of these. They kept saying, what was it, 9 pounds of pressure to pull the trigger. And he said this. He's like, 6 times he had to pull 9 pounds of pressure. I'm going to tell you all right now. And it's a little secret that maybe, you know, I'm going to say it anyway. It doesn't fucking matter. When I pull my duty issue firearm, we had Glock 23s. I'm not sure, or we had Glock 22s. You pull it the first time, it's tough. You know, you got to pull it. But you don't have to go back and reset and pull it again and start over. No, it's already in. So the first time, look at it like this. You pull it in like that. You don't go all the way back out here. When you go from here on the first trigger pull in, now you just stay here. You stay in there. So dropping 6 rounds can happen in 2 seconds flat. That is nothing. 6 rounds is nothing. But again, I have people on Twitter. Why did you have to shoot him 6 times? Well, because people get shot 17 times and don't die and are still a threat. People get shot once in the leg and die. That's why there is no amount of how many times you can or can't shoot a person. It's impossible to put that on people. It is unrealistic. There's no way you can do it. You have a better chance of waking up tomorrow, walking down to Texas by noon, and getting Elon to fly you to Mars and starting your own fucking planet. You have a better chance of that happening than to ever predict how many bullets it would take to take a human being out. It's not possible.
And Mark, I do want to get back to that situation in a minute, because I think a lot of people listening also want to hear about how future instances like this can be prevented. I think we all, people in law enforcement, on the streets, you're scared for their own safety. I mean, I think a lot of folks would want to know if there are preventative measures. You touched on some, but I want to get back to that. Before we do that, though, and you know, take a moment if you need to, because I'm sure this was emotional for the courtroom. When the verdict came out, I saw you posted a video about that. Can you describe the atmosphere, what you saw when that verdict dropped, and take your time if you need to before you know, describing it.
When the verdict, all right, we'll get back to the first question in a minute. So when the verdict came out and the jurors were coming out, multiple women, you could tell, were just in the back hysterical crying. So I knew it wasn't going to be good. I could count 5 that if we were privy to what was going on back there, probably had to be hugged by others. It was just visible. You could see like their makeup was running down. So I knew when they come out, they were coming out with something guilty. The big one was the murder. Again, he was charged with 3rd-degree murder. Could have went to jail for 20 years. He would have gotten taken into custody immediately. First thing they say is not guilty. Murder, or the clerk to the foreman on the charge of murder in the 3rd degree. How do you find? Not guilty. My son Tyler was sitting right next to me. I grab his leg and I squeeze it like, yeah, fucking A. And then he says, now this is where there was some confusion, because in the courtroom, it sounded like the clerk said involuntary manslaughter. How do you find him? And he said guilty. But he said in the charge of voluntary manslaughter. So you couldn't hear him properly. That's where the confusion was, because everybody was like, they just said involuntary, but everybody's reporting voluntary. So it was, the clerk was just, it was his tone of voice just went down when he said in the charge of, and went from in to voluntary. So voluntary, found guilty. And then the air was let out of the room. Like, you couldn't believe it. Like, he did not want to kill this kid. He didn't want to. Didn't. His behavior after he shot him shows you he didn't want to do it. He shoots. He retreats for safety. Why? Because he thinks he's going to get shot, which he says in his testimony. Why did you shoot? Because I didn't want to get shot in the face and die. That was his answer, and that's what he said from day one. He didn't want to. So when you hear voluntary manslaughter, everybody, it was just like, and then the stupid, use of an instrument of a crime, or possession of an instrument of crime. It's called PIC, P-I-C, which is dumb, because that means every single cop out on the street right now is in possession of an instrument of crime, his gun. And that just goes hand in hand with the voluntary manslaughter, goes hand in hand with endangering another person, which it's basically redundant.
Yeah.
And then there was a fifth one about being unprofessional, officer unbecoming, which we was found not guilty on that one. So after that, as you can imagine, Mark and his supporters, the cops, everybody, there was a ton of cops there supporting him, because guess what? This is going to be something now they have to worry about while they're still in the job. They were all disappointed, and it was unfair, I believe, and in my opinion, I don't know this because we are not able to have any idea what's going on in a jury room. But I firmly believe that because at 3:30, around 3:15, 3:30, the jury came back and wanted Officer Dial's full testimony read back to them. That was going to take another hour. The judge said, no, use your memory. He said to him, he's like, look, they only testified yesterday for about 28 minutes. You should be able to remember what he said. And they wanted to see the video of Officer Dial and Officer Morris at the same exact time. They wanted to see the whole incident simultaneously, so it was a little, and I think everybody was kind of thrown off by it. Like, where's your head at? No one could really gauge it. And the judge was like, listen, I'm going to bring this back out here at 4:30, and we're going to see if we need to go till tomorrow, because he was shutting the court down at 5. I think because of that, there were holdouts that did not want to convict him. I think I would bet money on 5 to 6 holdouts that were not convicting him on anything. And I'm sure there was holdouts on the other side that wanted to convict him even the other way.
Sure.
They go back in. 25 minutes later, they have a verdict. So in my opinion, they go back in and they were all like, yo, we want to come back down here tomorrow and possibly have to stay here and come back next week on a holiday weekend and have this on our minds all weekend long.
Wow.
Compromises were made. They gave them the lesser, and that's how they come back out and the verdicts were read, and that was it.
So next step now, I mean, verdict's in, next step is sentencing. Do you have any insight into what that's going to look like?
No, they don't know. It's not until July, and now for like people, again, he's already done time. He's been in jail. He's done 10 months. So whatever they give him, that already counts. So he's already have 10 months in. I think a lot of people are kind of thinking 1 to 3 time served, maybe house arrest. If anything, a few months. He's not gonna he's not going away for 5-10 years. That's not happening. They tried to revoke his bail. The district attorney's like, well, we're going to be asking for state time. State time is anything over 2 years. And the judge was like, yeah, I'm not revoking his bail. Like, he's not a flight risk. There's, without saying it, because legally he's not going to be able to, but you could tell he's just like, I'm not sending him. No, we're not doing that.
Sure.
That's how it ended. But, for a lot of the people that were following and only get the clips, I want to go back over, the actual incident.
Sure.
So, again, so Mark gets out. To remind you, Mark sees his partner with his gun out. Again, Mark's partner initiated all this. Mark's just a passenger. Gun out. Hears him giving commands to show his hands. Goes around to secure the other side to get him out of the vehicle. Again, now, right now, the prosecutor wants you to think they were going in and ready to go shoot people. Like it's the fucking movies. No, they're going there to get him out of the car, to find out what's going on, and probably arrest him for a DUI. Not that they would know that's what it was, but cops know, I pull these people over for these types of incidents. These are usually the outcomes. They're going to do that. They get to the car. His partner yells, he's got a gun. He sees what looks to be like a gun and the behavior of a person pointing a gun at you. And guess what? It wasn't. But he didn't have what we all have now. It's 2020 hindsight. Because if it was a gun, he's dead. That is the option Officer Dial had at that day. It was either a gun with all the information that was given to him, all the information that he was able to acquire in a second, all of that. Was it a gun or wasn't it? Even though it looked like a gun, even though he behaved as if it was a gun, he took the proper steps to make sure his life was not executed, that his partner's life was not executed. It just happened to turn out it wasn't a gun, because if it were, we're not here today. Mark is dead. They'll have a great show for a day up, on Academy Road, a great procession where they take the body from Temple and they drive it down to the medical examiner's office with the helicopter. This is how it works, just so you all know what happens when a cop dies. They come, they get the body, and they do a procession down to the medical examiner's office. The helicopter will have the floodlight on the car the entire time. They will go, be led by highway. A stream of cops will follow and lead the way. They will drop him off there. They will then have the hearse come down from, I'm drawing a blank on the gentleman on Academy Road that does all the funerals for the police. He takes the body to the funeral home, and they follow him back up and do the procession over. That's what Mark had to figure out, what was right or wrong. What was my decision? Am I going to be laid out in a funeral home, or am I going to protect myself in the community? And he chose, I'm going to protect myself in the community. And this is how they rewarded him. It is for anybody to sit there and say, he should have done this, he shouldn't have done that. Please call me. I will take you out somewhere. I will put you in two of the easiest scenarios. I will give you information on the scenario, stuff that you would never be able to have in real life. I will give you options, choices, and I will guarantee you will fail. You will fail after I train you and show you how to do it. Why? Because there is no guarantee. Because I'm going to change a scenario on you just like that, because that's what happened to Officer Dial. That's what happened to him. The scenario that he was presented with and the scenario he was involved in changed the second he shot, and then they saw it wasn't a gun. It was a knife. And only then did they know. And here's what they didn't show you. Here's the clips you don't get to see. Mark carries him, picks up his body, knowing like, oh shit, he might be dead, puts him in the car. He takes the car, the police car, and flies to Temple. Lights and sirens, blowing horns. Come on, come on, come on. Pep talking the guy. Stay with me. Flying. Gets to the hospital. Fucking carries him in. After he's in there, he's shaking because he just killed somebody. Mm-hmm. They don't show you all that on the news. They don't show you him in shock when he's being interviewed, by fellow officers that are there. They don't show you any of that. They don't tell you that news, because that makes him look like a human being that didn't want to fucking kill anybody. They don't show you all that. But that's what the court got to see. They got to see his body camera in the hospital. They got to see his hands literally shaking because he just killed somebody. And he doesn't find out until a little later. And then when he finds out, he's in complete shock. He's not afraid of, I'm going to jail. He's not even thinking about that. He literally was so concerned that he fucking killed somebody. He was beside himself. And I knew him way before this, in his early days as a cop. I knew him when he would come here to my house, hang out with my son. They would be in my yard, having fun. He's a good-looking guy who has, always has a pretty girlfriend, who is somebody that stands in the area that would stand out. People are going to look at him like, that's a handsome kid. That's a respectful kid. But he never acted like that. He was always, quiet, but you knew he was there, but he wasn't. You knew he was there, but you didn't hear it. You didn't see it. Since then, it's sad to see he's literally a shell because of not only what happened, because the scenario turned out to be wrong. And that's what happens with cops in these split-second decisions. Sometimes it's wrong. And that's what that law that I just had posted was for, to protect them from that scenario. So you can't hurt and crucify every single cop who's trying to do the right thing, but gets it wrong. Because you know who else tries to do the right thing, gets it wrong? Doctors. You know, when they try to save your life, but they clip this or snip that and they die. Are they going to prison? No. Why? Because it's a fucking accident. I was trying my best at that moment in the situation I was in, and it didn't work. That is the crime. It's an accident. And that is what they didn't show you. Okay. Mm-hmm. They don't highlight the fact that his partner yelled gun. They try to, which still is astonishing to me that it was allowed, that the prosecutor was allowed to say this opening and closing arguments. He says knife. He says knife. Like, no, he doesn't. I still don't understand that. But he was allowed to. And something happened in that jury where I would bet there was a handful that were absolutely no way he's not guilty on any of this. And there was a handful that were like, he's guilty of something, you know. And when they had their, and this is where it all went. Again, the trial only went for 2.5 days of testimonies. Okay. The rest of it was deliberation. As soon as that judge put the clock on them, that's where they all went in and said, yo, I'll bet you anything. They went in and they made a deal. And the deal was, all right, we're not going to convict them on murder, send them away forever. Because even Eddie's family didn't want that. Okay.
Oh.
They didn't want him to go away.
That's news, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was, again, these are, now I'm saying some things that have been told to me from reporters that I'm not going to say who, or, you know, that's for them to report, but they didn't want him to go. They didn't want him to go to jail for years. They wanted him to be convicted, of course, but they didn't want him to go to jail for years. They told reporters that. Reporters didn't tell you that, did they? No. Nope. They didn't tell you that. They didn't show you the video of him being a human being. They didn't show you or tell you about Mark on the stand breaking down multiple times where they had to give this kid a box of tissues because he took a life and he never wanted to, like most cops.
Well,
it's not Heat. It's not Scarface, you know, cops. It's not the 80s even or 90s in Philly PD. These kids out here just want to go out, have a job where they make money, come home, be a productive member of society, save a life or two, maybe move up in the ranks and have a good career. That's all they want. Have a little action, a car chase here, a gun pinch there. I remember those days, sure. But guess what? All that flies out of the system after a couple of years of doing it. They just want to get home safe. They don't want to go out killing people. No matter. And if you're a person that thinks that's what cops just really do, there ain't no hope for you, man.
Yeah, well, and we know that there are extremes on every spectrum. You know, and you know, I know that this is a case that's obviously personal to you, knowing you know, one person very well who was involved and very much impacted by this. There are extreme people. You see them online. You come across them occasionally in the city. Probably people who are just happy to see a police officer get locked up for whatever amount of time.
Yep.
I loved how you humanized the story, told that story that we didn't hear about him trying to save a life, driving this person
you didn't show that
on.
They didn't show that on the news.
A person who pulled a knife toward him, still took him, put him in a car, raced him to the hospital.
Brian, I got to answer something here because this person I've been going back and forth with on Twitter today. It's been driving me nuts because I'm wasting my time. Okay. Sierra, I don't know if you're still on here. All right. You're asking me, why did they pull him over? What was his traffic infraction? Again, now, Sierra, I told her I would explain everything to her. Because she's telling me she dates a cop and the cop said, oh, I never would have shot him 6 times. Again, asinine. Hope he isn't in my district. I gave her a scenario. She still hasn't responded to it because, again, I will make her fail that scenario. And then she would be in the same situation Mark's in. I am standing in front of you. Okay, any one of you, 25 feet away, and I have both of my hands. Oh, am I still on?
Your
Can you hear
frame's
me?
freezing up for me. I can hear you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know what happened. You can hear me though?
I can hear you. Yeah. Now I can't. Mark, let me know when you come back on. I mean, I'll you know, while Mark gets his AV and everything situated, I can talk a little bit just about my reaction to the story Mark told, because I learned a lot. I think a lot of us Philadelphians saw this story when it broke. We saw the video, we saw partial video, then we had more come out. Um, Horrific situation that clearly the officer didn't want to be involved with. Obviously, you know, the deceased, their family nobody wanted a situation like that to ever play out. Um, and I think Mark's logged out and coming back in here in a little bit. But you know, bringing the full story into picture, I think, does help a lot of us understand what these police officers deal with day to day, the gut decisions that they need to make, and the aspirations to be better. I hope every officer listening right now watched the situation and has learned from it. And I hope the prosecutors in this case too have learned something from this situation as well, and aspire to be better, to work with your officers on the ground to help prevent these situations. I've got Mark texting me right now. All right, he's trying to get back on, I think. Um, but again, a lot of lessons to be learned with this. You know, Mark's account was certainly enlightening for me. I hope for a lot of folks who are listening. We may pick up the conversation if he's able to get back on. And I'm going to check the Twitter feed real quick as well in case there's any questions I can answer. You know, just as an observer and somebody who certainly follows the speed. All right, I'll let you all know when I hear from the Sarge. And anybody, if you do want to tweet me a question, if you tuned in late and want a little bit of a recap of what we discussed, at Brian Hart PR, feel free to shoot me a message. I've got my tweets open. We can certainly talk about that. All right, guys. I think we are going to wrap this up right now. I thank you to Mark Fusetti for sharing his experiences today with the trial. Again, I hope we all learned something from this conversation. I hope we can continue this conversation as we build a better and safer Philadelphia. Thanks so much, everybody.
All right, I think I'm back. Holy shit. All right. Sorry about that. See, I was trying to demonstrate something, and Krasner and his cronies friggin' hit me with a virus. How about that? Hold on, I'm going to bring Brian back in real quick. We bring him back on, and then I'll show you what I was trying to demonstrate. All right. Let me see. Okay. So there was a person, Sierra was in here earlier, and I was going back and forth with her all day. She goes, her boyfriend, who's a cop, wouldn't have shot 6 times. Again, which is absolutely insane to say, because what if the guy had a bulletproof vest on and you shot 6 times and he's still shooting at you? Do you stop? Like, oh, that's 6. I'm done. I can't shoot anymore. That's crazy. Here we go. Sierra, if you're still on, I asked you to tell me what you would do. I gave you all the scenarios. I'm going to do it again. All right. I'm sitting in my car right here. I'm sitting down. This was the scenario. I'm 25 feet away from you, sitting, not running towards you. Not a threat, right? Now, let's see if I can do this again without. Here are my hands. They're right here. You see? Behind my back. Sierra, you give me a lawful command to show my hands. I don't. No, not showing them. Okay? I'm not showing them. You give me another command. Nope. No. Not only am I not going to show you, right now, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. All right? Again, this isn't real. This isn't real life. This is not how it works on the street. This is why they don't practice every possible scenario you can think of in your head, because it's unrealistic. Here they go. I'm going to come with my right hand, just so you know. Okay? Bang, what do you do? All right? What do you do? Now, I'm not going to give you the answer, but this right hand is going to point at you with or without a gun. What do you do? So, Sierra, when you tell me what you would do, I will answer all the other questions you have. Until then, we're done. Okay? Dan, I see that. We don't want to do that, Dan. We don't fight. We don't riot. So, to recap it all right? Mark is put in a situation that his partner decides to get involved in, which I'm sure if Mark was driving, he would have done the same. I would have too. A car flies by me at a high rate of speed, driving erratically on a Sunday, on an summer afternoon, beautiful day, kids and people running around. I'm going to get that guy. Something's wrong. Again, he's either fleeing from somebody, a person, a crime, or he's whacked out of his mind, driving erratically, or he's in danger and needs help. Whatever the scenario is, I am going to get to that person so I can have contact and investigate and then find out the problem. And that's what they went to do. Did they do everything the right way? No. And guess what? You can literally find something wrong with every single police chase, foot chase. Somebody just forgot to do this or didn't do that. And that's what happens when your adrenaline's up and the blood's flowing. And, it's the moment, it's a feeling that can't be duplicated. I'll tell you that. A lot of times it's fun. Oh, that adrenaline rush. You feel like you can take on the world. It's exciting. The crash sucks, but this is a normal reaction. This, again, just think about a moment in your life where you won money, you found money. All right, let me get Brian back in here. Hey, send me a virus.
I just told everybody we were wrapping up, but
well, I still have 1,000 people on here, so I want to do a full recap. So, like, what it's like as a law enforcement officer, have that adrenaline rush and then dump. Just imagine, I know what you like to do on the weekends, when you're.
So we'll get to that later.
But your best weekend ever, that feeling, that like, ooh, I could take on the world right now. Imagine having that 2 or 3 times a night and then dropping. It's like getting high and then falling out, getting high again and falling out. It does a lot to you. So their adrenaline is probably up right now, going. They see him, they lose him, they find him, they see him parking. Now, the prosecutors want you to think, oh, he's just parking his car. First of all, he went up the wrong way of a street. All right. He's not parking his car to park it and go into the house or go to a store. He's eluding the police. He's trying to hide from them, but they caught him. They get out. And again, off of everything his partner's telling him, up until the moment he makes contact with Eddie, he fears for his life. That's why he discharges. And again, I showed you, pulling a trigger 6 times can be done in 2 seconds. I can empty a magazine in 3. Okay, that means nothing. So they were also trying to make that sound like that is such an injustice. Shooting 6 times at somebody, shit, you shoot 10 times, 16 times if you have to. You shoot until the threat is neutralized.
In fairness, can I jump in and play devil's advocate? Because a lot of folks listening, especially those who aren't in law enforcement, there's probably folks listening who have never handled firearm.
Yeah.
We do hear about cases where, 6 sounds like a lot. We hear of cases where there are 10, 15, 20 shots. I bet back when I worked in the restaurant business way back, I went to community college. One of the servers I worked with had a brother who was shot. I don't think I'm overestimating when I say over 15 shots. Killed his older brother. Now, I won't get into the details of that case out of respect for the surviving brother. Executed or killed on the scene by a police officer. With again, I don't think I'm overestimating by saying 15 shots. When people see headlines like that, I'm in the PR business. When you see headlines like that, it's not a good look for the profession of policing.
Right. And do you know why? Because they are trying to get you upset. They're trying to get you to click on that link. They're trying to get you to buy that newspaper. And the reality of it is sometimes it takes 15. Guess what? Sometimes it takes more. Sometimes it takes an AR-15 to kill somebody. Sometimes it takes a shotgun with 2 slugs through them. Sometimes it takes 1 magazine, drop it, reload, rack it, and again, it just happens. It all depends on every situation. It's every single one's different. Again, you can be what's called a 300 shooter. That's when you're training and we qualify every year. If you're a perfect shot, when I was taking my qualifications, 300 was the perfect number, which means you get everything dead bullseye, everything in the middle. You're perfect. I'm not a perfect shot. I was like 280 at best. And that was, probably with the help of a bullet or 2. A perfect shot person, anybody, they're marksmen. When they are in a real life situation firing and they're trying to hit somebody, at best, they're 30%. 30% of their perfect shot, which means, like in baseball, they're going to fail more times than not. So when you are doing that in a life or death situation, your life, your partner, the community, it is not crazy that you may have to go and shoot 5, 10, 15. While I'm shooting 15, my partner's shooting 15, that partner's shooting 15. Do you know why? Because I see him as a threat to me. He sees him as a threat to him. She sees him as a threat to her. We don't talk to each other while the threat's there. Hey, I'm going to shoot 5. You shoot 5. You 7. Okay, great. Break. No, it's not how it works. Everybody individually takes on that threat. And when the smoke clears, it is what it is. You may not like it. It may not sound pretty, but that's the reality of the job. Otherwise, we would be living in a world where there are no cops and criminals would run this country, and you'll be living in just like what's the movie, The Purge, hiding in your house all the time.
So police training, though, I mean, I'm sure they delineate and define excessive force.
Yes.
So now there is the police training excessive force, and it may vary from department to departments to state and
Well, there's a
everything else.
standard
But
everybody follows. There's a standard.
but okay, so there's
Yeah,
that
there's like a
standard.
graph that you
There's
can
that
follow up.
standard.
Yeah.
Then there's attorney
But again, it's a
standards.
guide. It's
Right.
not an
Right.
absolute. It's a
Right,
guide.
but because
Every
in
situation
America,
is different.
ultimately we have lawyers and judges and juries who ultimately define that, and that can vary from situation to situation.
Everything.
Just like I'm sure that training varies from situation to situation. What excessive force looks like. Mark, can you help us? I'm not in law enforcement. Can you help those of us who aren't in law enforcement understand that delineation between excessive force and appropriate force?
Again, it all depends on the scenario. Me and you, let's just say you're the subject of this exercise. I am coming to you. I approach you, got called for whatever reason. I encounter you. You walk towards me. My first use of force is going to be a verbal. Stop. Let me see your hands. You don't stop. But I see your hands, and I see there's no weapons in them. You continue towards me. I'm going to back up. Depending on your department, I may have OC spray. I may have a taser. I may have both. What am I going to do next? Well, I'm going to increase my voice, possibly. Stop. Don't come near me. Stay where you're at, whatever. But you're going to be more commanding and demanding. What's his actions calling for next? Does he run at me? Well, if he runs at me, we're going to go hands on, because I'm not going to have time to go here to get something. I might, but I might not. So my next is going to be a fight. Now we're fighting. Well, guess what? Whenever you're in a situation with a person, you use the same exact force they are using plus one. So if he's kicking and punching, I'm kicking and punching, but I'm going to go up one. Now, the situation, well, again, depends. Am I in a room with you? If I am, I'm not using my OC spray, because I'm going to render myself useless and give you my weapons. You may be high as a kite. That's going to be useless. So we're not going there. If I'm outside, maybe. But usually OC's for when other people are in a melee, and instead of jumping in, getting in the melee, you spray them. That usually calms everything down. But again, it's not absolute. In that situation, if I have a taser, I'm going to go to that. And I'm going to zap you. Well, guess what? Tasers don't work on everybody. Some people just pull that right out and keep on going. Now what do? We're in a fight for my life, because now I've been in a fight for, let's just say, a minute. And anybody that's been in any real fight, 1 minute's a lifetime, and it wipes you out. So now what is my threat? What is my fear? You're going to overpower me, and you're going to take my gun and kill me. So we went from talking to screaming to fighting to either taser or OC spray, depending on the situation. None of it has worked. I'm in a scenario here. I'm painting a scenario that this is a perfect scenario where now I'm at my last resort, because now I am out of energy. I am out of time. I don't have any backup here yet. Let's just say they're 10 minutes away. I'm on an isolated road in Idaho. What do I do next? Well, guess what? I'm going to take out my gun, and I'm going to shoot you. And I'm going to shoot you the amount of times it takes for you to stop putting my life in danger. It's neutralize the threat. After I neutralize you, I will assess the situation. No longer a threat. Now I'm going to try to save your life. That's the process. You didn't have a gun on you the whole time. You had nothing on you. What do you think? Am I justified in doing that? That is how this job is. A simple face-to-face encounter of, hey, stop right there, turn into me killing you. Yep. Now, if you don't have all the facts, you don't have the story I just painted, which the media never gives you, because they only give you portions, because they want the outrage. They want you watching them to find out the next outrageous thing. You think I just fucking shot an unarmed man. But there was a reason for it, because I was about to be overtaken. And the second I'm done and my gun is available to you, what's to say you want to pull my gun and kill me and then go on a shooting spree? Or you take the gun, let's say it's 9 o'clock in the morning. This is happening. And we're out back of a school because your house just happens to sit behind a school. And this guy lost it. Wife was cheating on him. Life's over in his mind. They call for a disturbance. I show up. You're out front. You're pissed off at the world. I'm telling you, hey, what's going on, pal? Stand right there. Hold up. No, you're coming towards me. And then that whole scenario just played out. But I didn't shoot you because I fear that I may be using excessive force. And you overtake me. You take my gun. You get it off. You figure out how to get it out of the holster. It's not hard. Mm-hmm. You pop me, kill me, I'm done. And you just say, you know what? I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory. I'm going to head over to that school, and I'm going to go out famous. Now, what you think would happen? Everybody would be in an uproar that I didn't shoot him. If he went in and, God forbid, did something. Now, that's just a random, crazy scenario. But guess what? That scenario can happen anytime. And crazier ones, even more complex ones can happen. And that's why there's a guide, a use of force guide is there as a guide. What you decide needs to happen at that moment. Of course, if you come walking at me like, hey, listen, I want to talk to you, I pull out my gun and shoot you, that's absurd, you know? Or you want to talk to me and I go screaming and yelling at you like mother F this, mother F that, and be a super trooper, absurd. And I call those people out. When I see those videos, I call them out. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, that's not how you act. But there are scenarios where it seemed innocent. A car driving by on a one-way street, parking to the person that has no idea. It seems innocent. It seems like, oh, that's a little crazy. But when you have all the facts, when you have all the details, and when you know and have slight understanding of how policing works, it's not crazy. Mm-hmm. It's a tragedy. It is a situation that Mark was put in, and he had to make a decision that turned out to be wrong because he didn't have a gun. If he did, he's dead.
Is the proliferation of handguns in this city, a lot of them illegally owned, illegally carried, does that factor into the mentality in those situations?
Well, here's what you have to, and this is where cops have to really tread on thin ice, because one of the most deadliest, I don't know statistically because I haven't seen them, the most deadly encounters police have are traffic stops. Used to be warrant service. Now I believe it's domestic calls. You can go to a bank robbery, show up, guns out, ready to go, ready for war, like the movie Heat, the greatest, shooting scene in a movie ever. You could be prepared for that, and they come out, hands up, they lay down, you tag them, bag them, and you roll. Easy as that. You were ready for war, but it didn't happen. Thank God. And then you go and you pull a car over for a guy with a broken taillight. You're bored. You ain't seen any action all day. You're like, you know what? Let me go pull this guy over. Pull him over. You run the tag, clean tag. Brian Hart. No wants, no warrants. That's what they would say. It means you have no want. You're not wanted by anybody. You've got a good registration. Your car insurance is paid. I'm just going to come up. I'm going to talk to you real quick. I'm going to give you a ticket, and I'm going to roll. I'm not pulling my gun out like, oh, my God, what are you doing? No. I'm going to come up because I assume this situation right now is low key, low level. But you're sitting there, and your life just ended last night for whatever reason. You lost all your money. Your wife rolled on with your fucking best friend. Something happened. Your kid died. Whatever. I don't know any of that. I'm coming up to you with my guard down, and boom, you're sitting there waiting for me. I come up, it's over. I have no defense. So when cops encounter everybody, they have to treat every situation as though that person thinks our encounter is because that person did something wrong, but I got to do it professionally because I don't know if they did something wrong.
And you want your demeanor to de-escalate, right? If I'm understanding, you don't want your demeanor to escalate their demeanor,
even in a high risk situation or a high tense situation where someone may have a gun. You don't, you want to calm them down. You want to bring them down. You don't. Anybody that's up here in whatever the situation is, you want to bring them down here. And people that are down here, you don't want to come in up here and then bring them up to you. That's where a lot of cops get in trouble because they walk into a situation, they think because they have the blue shirt on or black shirt or wherever they are in the country, that person's going to automatically respect you and that they should. You're demanding it. You're not commanding it. And that's where cops get in trouble because then they don't respect you. And then they talk a little shit. And then you're like, holy shit. This guy's talking shit to me and I'm a cop. I could arrest him, but he's still talking shit to me. And now it's all of a sudden, they took it personally. You can never take anything personally in this job. You can't. And that's what gets them in trouble because now you're going to bark at him or her and they're going to bark back. And now you look like two yo-hos in a bar on a fucking Saturday night drunk. Now you're just barking at each other, but you always have to stay on top because you're the law. And if we allow people, as we've seen, to just run rampant on our police, what do we see? We see kids and we see car meetups. We see people jumping on cars and flipping police cars. And
you see Meatball. Remember Meatball?
You see all that shit.
I literally influence. People are becoming influencers, recording,
but
either themselves creating crime.
But that's what happens.
Or police interactions. I mean, people are turning them into
that's
Instagram
it's always
subscribers.
a click. Yeah, it's a clickbait, and for cops that fall for it, it's a shame because
and a lot do. Are you guys trained on that now?
I'm sure they are. When I was
because there are Instagram influencers who are trying to bait police into whatever they're trying to run.
I'm sure there are, and here's easy training for you. Don't fucking take the bait. Don't get mad at them for doing it. Let them do it. What's up? Have it something witty on you. Have a fucking joke book. When they talk a little shit, rip them back. Have a little fun with it. But don't take it personally like they stole your fucking wallet or something. Who gives a fuck? If they're going to talk shit about you, who cares? If they're going to laugh at you, who cares? As long as they don't put their hands on you or make a threat, who cares? And then if they do, you handle it. And that's it. That's the easiest way to deal with it. You just don't give in, but back to what we were talking about, the excessive force. The prosecutor in this case wanted this to look like this insane amount of excessive force because they had no right to. And it's just not true. They used the amount of force they deemed necessary at the moment, at the time of the incident, with the information they had and with the information he was observing. That's how fast it happens. And that's how little time they have to react. And that's why this is a tragedy, because he reacted on the information that was presented to him and that he was able to see. Again, all under 6 seconds. 6 seconds. And under a second when he had to decide, that's a gun. Or wait, is it? Let me look again. You don't have that kind of time. It's not real life. Because if it were, and he did that, he's dead. And that's why this is a tragedy, because a good man was doing his job and it was a mistake. That's all. Not intentional. Didn't want to do it. And because he did, he's now going to pay the fucking price for it. And it's not fair. And not only does he have to pay, but every cop that was down there that saw the injustice today, that saw nobody in that courtroom. And here's going to be a little shocker for you. I was told today from a DA that Krasner himself doesn't want Mark's name, didn't really want Mark's name roped in with all the other cops he's arrested. Because Larry started getting information once they start doing investigations. For everybody that doesn't know, when a cop goes to trial, the first thing the fucking ADA does is call over to get their personnel file to see the complaints, to see how many were founded, unfounded, how many people bitch and moan, any reprimands, any suspensions, all that, because they want to crush his credibility right off the bat. They did that with him. Nothing. They ain't gonna find nothing on him. And then he starts talking to people. And nobody had nothing bad to say. Even Larry, and you can even see it in his statement. Doesn't crush him. You know, I gave him, he deserved the chance at a fair trial, and that's what he deserved, and that's what we gave him. Even he was telling people, I'm not going to, you know, put this kid in with all the other cops. Mm-hmm. But in the beginning, he committed. A cop did bad. I'm going to get him. And it wasn't until later he realized it's a fucking good kid. If you were there, you would have seen. Even the ADAs didn't hate him. The jury didn't hate him. Even the victim's family didn't dislike him because he's a good kid. He's a good man that got railroaded by the system. And if this case were anywhere else in the country except Philadelphia, he's found not guilty today on all charges. And now every other cop has to
you don't think any other major city in the US that would happen?
No. Nope. Maybe Atlanta.
Ow.
Maybe Atlanta.
Okay.
But no. Nope. Yeah. No. Their common sense would have prevailed. And again, I don't know what happened in jury room, but I'm 90% sure they just made a deal to get out of there. And I think some people, because again, they were deliberating for almost
and we might find out later.
No, they said they do not want to talk to the I asked the reporter, they tried. All the jurors said no, we do not want to speak to the media. You'll never hear about them unless one of them comes out in the social media and says, I was the juror, I want to talk about it. But looking at that jury, I guarantee none of them want to be associated with the verdict or the case ever again in their lives.
Yeah.
They may truly be the type of jury that says, what was the case about? Nothing, just nothing, just some stupid case, and not tell anybody what it was really about, because that verdict's going to haunt a lot of them, and not in a good way.
Yeah.
So,
and the way you described it, the emotions coming out of there, just the visible emotions that you saw, I can only imagine.
It's just sad. Good kid. He now has to sit for the next 2 months wondering, am I going to go to jail again? Shouldn't have been in the first place. Shouldn't be going again. So hopefully the courts, and I have faith that the judge was a very professional, honorable judge. I have faith that, he's going to be extremely fair. Oh, and now before we leave, I said I wanted everybody to do this. So the family, like they said, they even said in their interviews today, they just wanted a conviction of something. All right. They didn't say I want him in prison forever or anything. They didn't say prison. They just said they just wanted a conviction of something so that he was held responsible. Okay. They're the victim's family. No one, even Mark, doesn't disagree with how their emotions are, because he took their loved one and he didn't want to, and he feels bad for them. Again, this is the kid we're talking about that, the media hasn't properly, portrayed on their news stations. So now this almost guarantees they're going to get a cash settlement from the city. They're suing the city on Shaka Johnson is their lawyer. And if you don't know, Shaka Johnson used to be a Philadelphia police officer, if I'm not mistaken, turned defense lawyer, high profile guy. He's a guy you hire if you're guilty. You don't hire him if you're innocent. Very expensive, costs money, but he sues the city for anything police related death incidents. He sues, wins money. Well, Shaka made a comment to reporters, which was insane, that when this incident happened, that he was going to retire after this settlement. He's going to make so much money for the family that he'll be able to retire.
He made a statement publicly?
Off record, no.
Off record, okay.
So I can't even tell you what news people told me. Yep. But he knows, and he knows when he said it. I call on Shaka Johnson when he sues the city for this family. For their sake, don't take a cut. Don't take your 40%. If they get $1 million from the city, give it all to them. You have money. You're loaded. You don't need it. So I'm going to post a video tomorrow. I'm going to tag them in it on all the platforms. I'm going to email them the video, and I'm going to ask them on behalf of Eddie's family, again, because it's a tragedy. I don't like that this kid's dead. I have nothing against this kid. I have nothing against their family. They're going to sue the city. Guess what? Sue. Get the money. Hopefully it'll make up something better for your lives. His death helps your lives, and you can live happy knowing that, okay, we are comfortable. Justice was served in their eyes, not in mine, but in theirs. Fine. They're the victim's family. But they should get all the money. Shaka shouldn't get 40%, 30%, 20%, 10%. Shouldn't get any of it. If he's truly gut wrenching over this, injustice, as he was saying, why aren't you going to give your share to him?
Pro bono. Yeah.
Do it for free, Shaka. And go on the news and tell everybody, like, I'm not taking a cut. I feel so bad for this family and what they've gone through. I'm giving them whatever the city offers, it's all theirs. I'm not taking a dime. So that's my challenge to him. And I can tell you all right now, ain't a chance in the world he'll do it. So, but hey, Shaka Johnson, that is Eddie's family's a lawyer who is suing the city. So if you're just joining, Shaka Johnson represents Eddie Azaria's family in the civil lawsuit. They will get money. The city will probably settle. I am calling on Shaka to do this case for free. Instead of taking his 30, 40%, whatever he's going to take and pad his bank account, give it to this family who can use it. Maybe they do good with it and they can move on and have a better life than they could have ever imagined off of this tragedy. That's what I would like to see happen now. I would like to see the courts do right by Mark, know that this was a tragedy, not a crime. Let him move on with his life and start over, and I want Shaka to allow the family to take 100% of whatever money they get from whatever settlement money they get. That's what I would like to see. And if Shaka does it, I will be the first one on here and say, bravo, you're a real hero for doing it. But it ain't going to happen. So that's that. Now, for anyone that did watch this, you have any other questions or any details I may have missed, still confused about something, reach out to me. I will talk about this until tomorrow. Come Saturday, it's over. Okay. Not going to, keep going. I've said my piece. I've talked to Mark. I've talked to his mom. I told him I was doing this and they want to move on. So if you have anything, you want to know anything, any question, you let me know. I'll give you an answer. But after, Friday night, it's over until he has his sentencing in July, and then we'll talk again. My buddy Joe asked me, is there an appeal? They don't know. They haven't talked about that yet. So what happens next? Both sides do pre-sentencing guidelines, what the district attorney wants to be the sentence to be, what the defense thinks the sentence should be. They present it to the judge. The judge will review it. And on July 17th, the judge will render that decision. And until then, if there's some issue or something that they think, hey, we got it a case, we're going to appeal it, I'm sure they will make those motions and do it. But as of right now, there was no discussion of an appeal. So that's it. Brother, I appreciate you riding along with me.
Always a pleasure. Next time we'll talk Phillies. Hopefully we have good news there.
They're doing pretty good, so we'll see.
A little bit of good news. Yeah. But let's definitely run it back soon. We'll talk about some of the good things happening in Philadelphia. So glad we brought a spotlight to this situation. And Mark, I learned every time we talk, I learned so much about
for all those that have no idea about law enforcement and have no idea about how it works, but you think you do, always remember this. If a person broke into your house tonight and had your loved one in a situation where you had to use deadly force, would you want any restraints put on you to use it? Just think about that. All right. So with that, brother,
I'll see you,
I
brother.
will talk to you soon. All right.
Yep.
Talk to you. All right, everyone. Thanks. Appreciate you jumping on. I'll see you all soon and have a good night.